there's no failure. It's only feedback. So it's like, what was working, what's not, and looking at it as like, we're investigators versus like, you suck, you messed up, like, that kind of thing, which is not true. There's just like something missing and figuring that out.
Welcome to the Calorie Conundrum Podcast with Coach Strick. Join us as we expand the weight loss conversation to beyond just calories and dare to ask the question, why does eating less and exercising more sometimes not produce the desired results? Here's Coach Strick to discuss this Calorie Conundrum.
Hello and welcome to the Calorie Conundrum Podcast. This is Coach Strick, and on today's episode we have Olivia Estela. Olivia is a Harvard graduate and the CEO and founder of LivFitFuel, LLC, which has helped hundreds of women experience life-changing health and body transformations using proven, research-driven methods. Her deep health coaching method does more than just teach you how to exercise and eat better. You'll also develop the mental and emotional skills you need to experience the confidence and freedom a healthy lifestyle has to offer. Her coaching, community, and programs simplify everything and equip you with the right knowledge and skills every woman needs to feel healthy, strong, and confident in their life and body. You can find Olivia on Instagram at Olivia Ruth Estela or on her website at livfitfuel.com. Let's hear what Olivia has to say about how coaching habits can change the way you look at your health and fitness goals. Olivia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sean, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I know our listeners would like to know, what got you into the health and fitness field?
So I always loved nutrition and fitness, but when I first started out, I was always trying to learn more about diets. It was always about diets growing up, on and off a diet. And I really struggled with my weight when I was in high school. And so I went through a hard time maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and I saw my first nutrition coach. And from that experience, I just learned I could eat so much more. I didn't have to be restrictive, and really learned how to eat to fuel my body versus restrict and diet. And that just I literally haven't stopped studying nutrition since that experience. So it really just changed my life. I went to graduate school. I went to Harvard for my graduate school. I was in accounting and finance. And from that experience, I changed my entire career because I really learned how much the diet industry is very corrupt, lots of false hopes, and realized that diets don't work long term. So I just really wanted to spread that awareness and help women, really learn how to live a healthy lifestyle, stop restricting and dieting, and just be able to thrive without dieting. So
just like so many other guests we've had on the show, you've experienced the other side. You've kind of had some issues with dieting that kind of pushed you towards finding out more information. And I was just thinking earlier today, it's I wonder, if you didn't push to learn more, you would be stuck in that cycle of dieting, it not working, and just continuing on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you experienced a coach. What made you get the coach, and what was the experience with the coach that made everything, change around diet and nutrition?
So I had heard a lot of good things. He was local in my community, so I heard a lot of great things about him. So I reached out and we started working together. So that word of mouth was super helpful. But looking back, it was the start of everything, but I don't teach how he coached me. So it was on around meal plans. And that was my first experience outside of I've tried vegan and paleo, intermittent fast, like Weight Watchers, like all of those, but this was like a meal plan. And I saw really great results in the short term. It wasn't a long-term solution. But it just like, I don't know, I just became so fascinated. I don't know if that answered your question, but I don't teach meal plans, but I used to when I first started coaching and realized doesn't work long term.
So would you say that what kind of pushed you forward with the nutrition was actually the coaching aspect and not the plans, or do you think they kind of both kind of played into the wanting to learn more and being so interested in that? Do you think it was the coaching or the plans themselves, or both?
He wasn't much of a coach, I guess.
Okay.
It was more of like a plan. Yeah.
Okay.
But I would see him check in with him, and he would give me a new meal plan and that kind of thing. But it wasn't actually any sort of like real coaching, which is what I do now.
Okay.
But it was just the start of, I literally gave my 2 weeks notice at the accounting firm that I worked at. Within like a month or two of like working, it was probably not, I probably should have thought it through a little bit better at that in the hindsight. And then I started studying and taking, got certified in nutrition then. And then since then, through my own experience, like after doing meal plans for a while, I realized then just different behaviors started coming up in my own eating and stuff that I noticed more of, like nighttime overeating, like trying to control food too much, which, the more you try to control food, the more it kind of controls you. So like being on a meal plan for a long time, then I went into like macro and calorie counting. And that's what everyone in the industry does. Like at this point, I was a nutrition coach, and I was giving my clients macros and calorie counting, and I was trying to follow it myself, and this is what everybody else was doing. And I was like, but I'm going over my calories, I'm going over my macros every day. I'm not like, it wasn't practical in real life situations or what I was dealing with emotionally, mentally, like, the things that come up, your sleep, health, all these other things were I was just struggling, and I saw my clients struggle too as well. So I'm like, there must be a better way. Like there's something I'm missing. Like, so I'm always trying to figure out like if there's a problem, like what's the solution? Like I know I'm not like, before I used to feel like I was like a failure. I'm like, oh, I can't stick to my macros. This is ridiculous, or I couldn't like stick to this meal plan. And realized it wasn't me. It was the strict diet, macro counting. It was just not practical kind of long term.
Okay. Yeah. There's a couple points that you brought up here. And one is that of a coach. You said you hired this nutrition coach and he gave you some meal plans, and, you said there wasn't much coaching. And this is a realization that I also had a few years back, and that there's a difference between calling someone a coach and them actually being a coach. Could you tell us a little bit about the difference that you see in, the ones that are being called coach and the ones that are actually coaching people?
Yeah. So my experience with my first quote unquote coach, which I wouldn't call him a coach, he just gave me a meal plan and I was expected to follow it. And then 2 weeks later, he would take my measurements and my weight and determine if he needed to change the meal plan. So there was no asking about my stress levels, my sleep, like how I'm doing, implementing, these, this meal plan and everything. And it was just and it was like, our meetings were like 10 minutes, like not anything, significant. So I just feel like that's not a coach. Like that's just, someone like giving you what do you want to call it? Like, not really like solving the problem, like the underlying problem, like just giving you like a cookie cutter diet or a, Band-Aid kind of approach, where like a coach really digs into, like a real coach digs into like I use like a whole person, whole body, like transformation approach, where I use like the deep health, the 6 deep health domains that precision nutrition like started. So it's like involving like your physical health, mental health, emotional health, relationship health, environmental health, and there's a 6th one, existential, spiritual health. So like with eating and exercise, like so all of these 6 domains, like a whole person, whole life, like you want to thrive on all 6 of these domains of human life experience. So they're all influence our eating and exercise behaviors, how we see ourselves, our effectiveness, and all the problems are all connected, but so are the solutions. So like, for example, like if someone struggles with like emotional eating or nighttime binge eating, or something like that. So emotional eating, they don't know how to handle emotions in a way, they don't have like healthy coping mechanisms. So they need to work on those skills and building those skills. So like there's a lot of like helping the client. There's a lot of, we keep in contact throughout the week too, like in between like our meetings, if things came up, like challenges, different things, and we work through them together, that kind of thing. So a coach is really there to give you like feedback and guidance every step of the way versus here's a meal plan. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a key point to kind of the whole idea behind this podcast, in that a lot of people don't realize is that following a meal plan works initially.
Right.
It works for the short term.
Right.
Beginning an exercise running program works in the short term.
Right.
And so people have this delusion of, oh, it worked when I first started, but it's not working now. So all I have to do is just go harder at what I was doing before. And this is when people start exercising more and eating less, thinking that that's going to be the answer to their problem. And that does not address all the things that you just talked about. Right. When you're sacrificing your sleep, when your stress level is increasing from doing all this extra exercise or not eating enough, and all these other environmental factors that you're talking about, when, if you're not addressing those, then the short-term plans of, meal plans and just, running or whatever for exercise, it's not going to last forever. It's going to eventually, your body's going to eventually say, we're done with that, because it's not, we're not getting what we need here. And so that's when people start to run into problems. Mm-hmm. And so you said something about how, the macro counting thing, it didn't work for you. And you mentioned a few things of why that was, but could you maybe go a little bit deeper into why the macro counting didn't work for you and maybe some of your clients, and then, way to make that, an easier, more everyday kind of deal that people can sustain?
Yeah. So like there are many ways, to track food, but a lot of them require like macro and calorie counting, a lot of time and dependency, like on, MyFitnessPal or, looking up everything on the internet. It's a lot of time to weigh and measure every morsel of calories, and it's just not practical in real life. You could count points with Weight Watchers, but you have to also look at, all of those metrics and stuff too, or use portion control cups. Like but you need those cups to know how to eat healthy. And when you don't have these tools, it's just not sustainable and really just time consuming. So like the problems with like calorie counting specifically is like, first you have to determine, the calories in, so the calories in food, and calculating all this math just to figure out like what's in your lunch. So using websites and, like MyFitnessPal, like I just said. So, but to do all that work, it's actually not as accurate as like most people think. The research has shown that it can be off by 25% just based on incorrect labeling, laboratory like measurement error, food quality, that kind of stuff, and then determining calories out. So then you have to determine like how much calorie expenditure that you are expending every day is also like 25% measurement error as well. So like apps that track your activity, your steps, or the machines at the gym, like their accuracy is like, off by about 25%. And everyone's so different. So it's just like all of these like 25% error, calories in, 25% calories out, like all this measuring, weighing, like using these apps to track, and it's all inaccurate. Like it's just kind of a waste of time, and like we have better things to do. So there's like just an easier, sustainable, more convenient way to measure. And I use the hand portions developed by Precision Nutrition. And because it's easy, it's convenient, your hands are always with you. You don't need another app. You don't need another like portion control thing. Your portions, your hands are like portion to your body. So if you're a bigger, taller person, you have bigger hands, and vice versa. And it's just simple, easy, saves time. You don't have to weigh, measure your food. You can do it anywhere. It's based on cooked food. So if you're at a restaurant or on vacation or any of that, like it's just so simple and easy. And it's really easy to customize your progress too. So if you're not seeing progress, then you can just take away. So like for the hand portions, like a palm sized portion of protein, it would be like a thumb sized portion of fat, a cupped hand sized portion of, I'm like doing this as if people can see my hands on the podcast, like a cup sized portion of carbs, and a fist size of vegetables. So, you can easily just like take out one fat portion, one carb portion if you're not seeing any weight loss, or just depending on your goals. It's just really easy, simple, and it just is so much more sustainable because you always have your hands no matter what. And then when you're stressed, don't get any sleep, like unexpected things come up, and you don't have time to like weigh and measure everything, like you just put your portions from your hands on your plate. Like it's just so simple.
Well, there you go. And I think the good thing about measurement of food in general, or even just tracking of food in general, is just the awareness it brings of what you're actually consuming. Mm-hmm. And the calories in, calories out, people will claim that, well, this is what it's doing, is it's making you be aware of how many calories you're eating. But my philosophy is that it may be doing that, but it's also just creating awareness around the actual food you're eating, not necessarily the calories, but what you're consuming, how you're consuming it, being more aware of how it tastes, how it makes your body feel, all these things like that. Just tracking it and being aware of how much you are eating can make a real big difference in the results that you get. If you're just eating willy-nilly, like a lot of people do, then it's kind of hard to determine like what's causing what, And so that's one of the benefits I see as the measurement of food and tracking of food. But this hand measurement thing is a unique way of going about doing that. I haven't heard of this anywhere except for Precision Nutrition. I mean, it might have been out there before that, but it doesn't require any scale. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't require any scale. It doesn't require measurements of anything. I mean, you just have your amounts determined by your body size and goals, and then you have your hand, and then you can adjust the food portions according to that. And so thanks for sharing that, because things like that are what people need to hear, just maybe to have another option as far as dieting and eating goes. So you said, you mentioned your clients a little bit, and you mentioned a couple mentalities that people have and that you yourself might have had in the past. And a couple of those things you talked about were like binge eating, guilt around food, getting too strict on certain things and counting. What does a typical client that comes to you look like, and what kind of issues are they dealing with?
Yeah, so a typical client has like tried all the diets, but especially those restrictive ones, but just can't stick to it long term. So they're good at like losing weight, but then gaining it and not really at maintaining, which, I want my clients to get to a place where they like feel happy, good, can easily maintain. And they worry, a lot of people focus on like the trees instead of the forest. They're focusing on, is potato or fruit fattening? Should I do keto, paleo, but yet they're like overeating at the kitchen sink or in the car, dazed out in front of the TV, or just eating because everybody else is doing it, trying to fit in, or picking at their kids' plate, or what I like to call like procrastinacking, or restricting and then binging at night. They're really just not listening to their body. They are focused on all these outside environment cues and not really actually paying attention to like their hunger. Are they satisfied, full? Like, what do they need? Like, do they need a walk, instead of food if they're feeling stressed? It's really like that's the biggest thing that they're missing, because a lot of people I find, since we're a kid, like when we're born, we're born knowing exactly what we want and asking for it. We cry when we're hungry, and until we get food, until we get fed. But like, and we stop when we feel satisfied. But over the years, we got so out of touch of those listening to that body cues. So, we're told to like clean our plate, or, no dessert until everything's finished, or, your plate's finished, or eat all your vegetables, and that's like the minimal of what people say. Like a lot of people grow up with a lot more restrictions around food, and it can really shape someone's relationship with food when they're more of an adult. So, and then like all these other diets, keto telling you what to eat and how much, and calorie counting, and it's just taking you away from actually listening to your body. So I help my clients actually listen to what they need, and pay attention, because a lot of people, if they're binge eating, or they're just not listening to what they need, or like as using coffee as a meal throughout the day, and yeah, it's suppressing appetite, but then they're like overeating at night, or all these different things that it's just they're, and have very like erratic eating like behaviors. So like, some days they eat a couple times, some days they eat once, or then it's just like all over the place, and like years of like dieting. So yeah, so that's pretty much what they come to me, because they want to lose weight in a sustainable way, but also like feel better, be able to listen to their body, build intuitive eating skills, like mindful eating skills, and
So these clients are coming to you in this, what I would call a typical state of most people, especially women, who are stuck in this diet culture of, try this diet and then fail, and then try this diet and then fail. And then, so we got that kind of picture of that client in our head, which a lot of people are probably resonating with. But how does a client, what is it like working with you for a client that would be different than, say, that first coach you hired as a meal plan coach? What are you working on? How is it done? And how long would it take to like change someone from that old way of being to this new kind of listening to the body and whatnot?
Well, it's hard to pinpoint a time frame, because everyone is different. So like I really get to know my clients, listen to them. I'm like a partner inside their, daily life. And my clients know themselves the best as well. So that combination of like building that self-trust within them, but also my input, knowledge, experience, and expertise, like that combo to create like a personalized plan where we change one thing at a time, which is so key to sustainability, because most, nutrition plans or exercise plans, like they change everything all at once, everything you eat, you have to count everything or follow this, eat this, not that list. And it just like changing your daily life like that drastically just isn't necessary or sustainable. And 95% of dieters gain the weight back, which was really disheartening when I learned that. So I believe like I was focused on like, what does that 5% of people do? Like, because everyone is unique. Life is too short to waste like on these diets. So like with me, we get very, very clear on what their big goals are. Like, how do they want to, what does their health and fitness and life look like 10 years, 5 years, 1 year from now? And, get clear on like their challenges too, which is super important. So if they struggle with the sweet tooth, cravings, overeating at night, mindless snacking, what are their challenges that are keeping them from getting to their goals? And then we change one thing at a time. So it's basically like building a better self, one thing at a time. Like, for example, one of my clients recently, I'll just call her Barbara. So she was struggling with like constant snacking, sweet tooth cravings. She only wanted to lose about 10 pounds. And she ate, I looked at her like 3 to 5 day diet record. She ate lots of veggies, carbs and fats, but very little protein. So that was the first thing that we had her work on. And using this just simply like, instead of restricting things in her diet, we focus on what does she need to add into it. And we just focus on like adding like 4 to 5 hand portions of protein per day. And almost immediately the urge stopped snacking, that snacking urge stopped, no more cravings, just better energy that was more sustainable, and lost like 5 pounds in 2 weeks, just because like all those cravings and snacking and those behaviors were coming because she wasn't getting proper nutrients. In this case, it was protein. So like, but if she had changed everything at once and I'd given her a total meal plan that changed everything or something else, she never would have noticed that significant change in just adding protein, where she actually could feel that in her body and actually like understand. So we really focus on that one thing, at a time, and also look at all the domains of deep health, like I mentioned earlier. We really focus on the physical, but like also a little bit of the mental, existential, social, relationship, environmental health, because they're all connected.
Yeah, so that was a good example of how it would be working with you. One thing you mentioned at the very beginning of that was you said something about the client feeling confident in themselves and you as the coach to move forward. Is there anything specifically that you do for your clients or help your clients do to help them feel more confident in themselves? Because I know a lot of people, they're screaming, I want that. I want confidence of myself right now. Like, is there anything that you could kind of do you do with your clients, or is there anything you could help with the listeners maybe increase their confidence?
Yeah. Well, I think as humans, we always immediately think of like what we didn't do, what we should have done, like get caught up on all these like negative things instead of focusing on like the small wins, what we are doing, celebrating those things, because like we get caught up in like trying to be perfect, which like there's no such thing as perfection. So we should just stop trying. But it's really about focusing on like getting a little bit better every day. So really focusing on like, where are we on, I like to use like a continuum of like 0 to 10. So if like our eating, if someone comes to me and they're like eating behaviors, what they eat and everything was like, say a 0 is like eating completely processed everything, not listening to hunger cues, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And then like 10 is, there's no such thing as perfect, but eating a lot of whole foods, lots of protein, veggies, feeling really good, energized. So if they come to me and they're like a 2 on that, like how can they get to a 3? How can they get to a 4? But also really like focusing on those small wins because they add up, and just changing one thing at a time helps them build self-confidence versus like trying to change everything at once. Because like when most people go into this industry or go into their health and fitness journey, they choose things that like maybe they could do on their best days, when people should start with things that they could still do on their worst days as well. Versus like, I'm getting ready for my Whole30 diet, everything's prepped, meal prep, perfect, but that only works, I don't know, for a short time.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah. No. So, I think it's a really good point that you're bringing up that people really need to hear if they missed it. And that's just taking small steps with the journey. And that's so hard in today's society because everybody wants it now. They want to be 20 pounds lighter yesterday. And so they're looking for the pill, they're looking for the potion, and they're looking for the workout that's going to burn off all the calories. And in reality, it is a slow and steady wins the race. And that's one thing that precision nutrition is really good with. And also another thing that goes along with that is you mentioned the small wins. And small wins are small and they're hard to detect. And so that's another benefit of having a coach, because the coach is going to notice these small things that you're not going to register in your head unless you're somehow keeping track of certain metrics. But when you're working with a coach, it's easy for them to see from the outside looking in the changes that are being made, even if they're small. So people are working, they start at a certain place and then they grow, but it's not that much, but they don't really feel anything. But when the coach is working with them, they can see those things and hear them and feel them. And so it could be, how the client's talking about themselves, or how the client's talking about food, or how the client's talking about, social events that they're going to, where before they were saying, I can't do this, or this is going to be hard, or I don't see how this is going to happen. And then now they're saying, words that maybe I can do this, or, just small things like that are small wins. But when the individual client is having those, it's kind of small, so they don't see it. But if they have a coach, then the coach can help, illuminate those small wins. What other small wins have you seen with your clients that if it wasn't you kind of mentioning it, they would maybe not have noticed it?
So many. Just like being consistent. It could just be like, okay, like you're eating protein, is, maybe you didn't want to eat it, but you ended up eating that. Or, going on vacation and not feeling stressed about like, oh, I'm going to gain all my progress, like lose all my progress, gain weight, like just coming back from vacation, feeling like, it was just another day, just in a different place. So it's not this huge like routine change, being able to go out to social events like you were saying, and just eat when you're hungry and stop when you feel satisfied, and just enjoy the time with your loved ones, like, is so huge, that quality of life. And like one of my clients today texted me, she's like, since our first conversation till now, it's only been maybe like 3 weeks. She's like, I lost 10 pounds just by making these small changes. And I try to like train my clients to like focus on those small wins, these like little things, like stop eating like when you're out to eat, when you feel satisfied, like stopping midway and like only finishing half your plate, like simple little things where they would finish the whole plate, or that kind of thing. Going for a walk instead of like stress eating, like those little things are so important. And what I always help another thing that I was just thinking of a minute ago was to help build that self-trust and confidence is like looking at yourself as like an experiment kind of thing. So I like to think of things as like, there's no failure, it's only feedback. So it's like, what was working, what's not, and looking at it as like we're investigators versus like, you suck, you messed up, like, that kind of thing, which is not true. There's just like something missing, and figuring that out. Like, and that's really where a coach comes in, because we can look at things more rationally versus like our clients can be very emotional. Like after, one of my clients recently, after like a holiday weekend, she's like, oh, the holiday weekend went great. But then like coming back into that routine, she's more of a newer client. And she was like, oh, I feel like I fell off the wagon, like go straight into this mindset of like, I'm a failure. And I'm like, okay, before we come to that conclusion, which you can't fail at this, we determined, just through that coaching and talking it out, which we just automatically go to that negative mindset versus actually like exploring what actually happened. So she was like, oh, well, I just actually didn't have food in the house. So I went to like whatever was quick and easy, but like it was basically she had no food. Like, it wasn't like that she was a big failure or anything. So it's really like solving these problems versus making it mean anything about them.
The person. Yeah. And so I love that. It's not failure, it's feedback. I love that because, like in the example that you mentioned, the lesson is that if there's no food around, you're going to go get something quick. It seems like a simple lesson, but if you take the time to look at that lesson and process it, then you're less likely to have no food in the house next time, because you learn this, if you learn the lesson. If you don't stop and learn the lesson, then it's just going to repeat itself over and over, and you're going to be like, "Oh, I suck."
Right. It's all my fault.
Yeah,
it's no willpower.
Willpower, but you don't have any food that you can eat in your house, so you had to do something, and you waited till the end of the day when you're tired and there's no food, and so you got something. And so, if you can stop and look at those, things like that and learn from them, then you can make small changes that can set you up for success. And like the example that you gave, like if she just had a backup stash of some healthy snack that could carry her over long enough to make something healthier, or, something like that, that's an example of, it doesn't take that much effort to have, something healthy to eat. But if you don't have it, then you're screwed, in her case, she's going to go get something that's, not so health affirming. All right, Olivia. Well, this has been a really great talk today. If the listeners would like to find out more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, they can reach me on Instagram at Olivia Ruth Estela. It's one L in Estela. Or my website is LivFitFuel.com. It's LivFitFuel.com.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me here, Sean. It's been fun.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Olivia. In today's world, health and fitness is currently on the minds of many. A lot of people are scared, some are fed up, and there are those that are just trying to live a long, healthy life. But countless people are struggling to achieve and maintain their optimal level of health and wellness. There are more and more people that want to improve their health and wellness, but are confused, scared, or overwhelmed, and are seeking help to transform their lives. Coaching, therefore, has become popular, and the types and number of coaches has grown exponentially. This is great, but there is one major problem with this situation. Anyone can call themselves a coach. I had been certified as a personal trainer for 10 years and was calling myself a coach when I found the teachings of precision nutrition and learned more about what it meant to be a real coach. Like Olivia, I realized that coaching is about more than some meal plans or having good form on some squats. Real coaching is about the client and where they are in the current moment. It's about their goals, dreams, and desires, and it's the coach's job to help guide them on their journey. I hope you can find a real coach that will look at your life holistically and help guide you towards your best self. And with that said, This is Coach Strick saying thanks for listening. And remember, when calories in, calories out doesn't work, that, my friend, is a calorie conundrum.
This podcast, including Coach Strick and guests, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects for the use of any information contained herein. Coach Strick and/or guests may recommend products or services in which they have a direct or indirect financial interest. To find out more, please visit www.calorieconundrum.com.